So it's finally time to talk about the second 27-inch Korean monitor that I got off eBay, which is just a little bit more awesome than the previous one that I got off eBay. This is the 27-inch SAKWA from Crossover from a seller called Dream Seller on eBay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tech Yes City. Today I'm going to quickly talk to you guys about the 27-inch SAKWA in the background here. I'll do a quick review on it. Then I will talk about Korean panels in general, some of the risks and some of the things associated with buying one of these panels and some things to look out for. So the 27-inch SAKWA will run you up about $300, though there is an option for an extra $10 to get the Pixel Perfect option, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Though for the money, you're just getting panel, and you're getting a lot of it. You're getting a 1440p LG AH IPS display. These things are gorgeous. They're like the best panels I've ever seen in my life for a computer monitor. They even beat the 4K monitor that we have at work. That's a Philips. So these things are definitely really good panels when it comes to viewing angles, when it comes to color reproduction, and it just comes to getting a beautiful picture in general. So we'll quickly talk about this monitor and what it features, and I will go a little bit more in depth in the conclusion as well. So let's talk about this monitor. It's got a DVI-D only and no scaler built in. So it'll have to be powered from your GPU directly. And so if your GPU doesn't support it, then this monitor won't work. So to see which monitors do work with this monitor, then go to the auction and check the GPU compatibility list. Though I will say that my GTX 970 supports both of these monitors absolutely fine. Now another thing about these monitors is that this one has speakers built in, though they are pretty bad. They do sound bad, and I don't recommend using them unless you are really on a tight budget and you're saving for some speakers. So next up, we'll quickly talk about the gloss versus matte thing, and also quickly talk about these two here, the differences between these two, because you're probably thinking, oh, they look pretty much the same. And they are pretty much identical. The panels are identical, the input lag's identical, except the PDC coating used on these, and that's a plasma disposition coating. It basically lets you have that gloss look with reducing reflections. And I must say that with the SAKWA, I really am impressed. It's a little bit better than the DS270. In that it makes the blacks a little bit deeper, a little bit richer. So if you guys are looking for one of the best gloss panels you can get for you, especially for the money, then I can recommend the SAKWA based on that alone. So then that raises the question of which is for you, gloss or matte. Now some people just hate gloss altogether. They can't stand it in any environment. And that's a subjective thing. For me, I love gloss. I love it. I think the colors pop more. I think they're more vibrant. I just like the feel of a gloss panel over a matte panel. Though I recently got a matte panel in, and that was the Dell, and I thought that had a really good light sort of matte coating on it that looked really good as well. So I am a big fan of some matte coatings, and that depends on you. Though these, for what it's worth, are gloss panels, though there are some other Korean panels out there with matte coatings. So if you want a matte coated Korean panel, then with the LG IPS panel in it, then go check for them. I'll put some links in the description below. Let's talk about other now, or things to consider when buying a Korean panel. And now if you're in the market for one of these things, and I'm going to clear this out of the air straight away, it's in the seller's best interest to get you a panel that works, especially if you're paying through eBay and PayPal. And that's because if you get a broken panel, it's not just a hassle for you, it's going to be a big hassle for the seller to process that return. They're going to lose, I'd say they're going to lose a lot more money than you are if you've got a broken Korean panel. So just keep that in mind, especially with eBay's new policies. So if you're buying one of these things, just keep in mind that I don't think the seller's going to deliberately send you a screwed panel. So I've got two of these panels here, and they're really good. Like, they've got no dead pixels. This one did have one stuck pixel when I closely examined it. That was over a year ago. I massaged it really hard, got it out. It's no longer a problem. So both these panels work perfectly fine. The backlight bleeding and the other issues like yellow tinting, I think that's something to look at. I mean, when I inspected both these monitors, at first it looked like there was black backlight bleeding, but then I looked at it from a different angle and it's like, okay, maybe that's just a little bit of shift. I'm not too much of an expert in backlight bleeding, but for what it's worth, when I'm looking at a normal picture on both these monitors, when I'm watching movies, when I'm watching games, everything looks pretty damn uniform. So it's pretty good. I mean, one thing I will say about these monitors out of the box is that they're really accurately color calibrated. So that's a bonus, especially if you're a video editor. These things are really good out of the box. So next up, let's talk about postage though. This is, I think, a lot of the panels would be damaged in transit. This is a huge thing to talk about because in my experience, when I've posted things to Australia, especially things over 2 kilograms for some reason, a lot of the time they've come roughed up. I posted a computer one time and man, I couldn't believe it. Like the actual corner of the case had been bent in. Like the corner of a case is so freaking strong on a PC case. How it got damaged in post like that, I have no idea. So keep in mind that some of the countries in the world have postage systems which are really susceptible to roughing up your items. So if you're in a country like Australia, for example, you may wish to ask the seller in advance, like, hey, I'll give you an extra $10. Can you package this thing extremely well? Like better than well, because I don't want to get a banged up panel. And so I think that's a lot of the times, I think a lot of these panels come damaged in transit, as I said before. So depending on where you live, I would say take some precautions, research how many of these panels come damaged in shipping. One more thing to consider as well is the actual item when it arrives. Check out the box. If the box is really banged up, you may wish to just consider returning it then and then, not even accepting the package. Don't even sign for it. Just say, look, send it back to the seller. The box is in disgusting condition. Because when I got these two, both the times I got these, the boxes were unmolested. There wasn't even a fingerprint on the boxes. So, I mean, I live in Japan where the postage system is considered very good. I'd say it's probably the best in the world. So it was no surprise to me when both these panels came, they both worked perfectly. So that's something to consider. Anyway, that being said, let's move on to a conclusion where I'll talk about a few other things. So in conclusion, the 27-inch SAKWA is amazing. I mean, for $300, you're getting a lot of panel for your money. One thing to consider though is there are some other options out there, especially the G257HU if you live in America. This thing's recently hit the market, 25-inch panel, 1440p, overclocks. And on that note, I will say that both the panels I have in the background here didn't overclock that well at all. The one on the right here overclocks to 67 Hertz. This one only overclocks to 63 Hertz. So if you want to overclock some of these Korean panels, then you might want to invest in one that has support for like 100 Hertz. I know some of them can go up to like 120. So you may wish to consider that though. Another thing on that note is that if you do get an overclocked panel, just keep in mind that sometimes the response rates or that the ghosting is not that good. And so if you're overclocking the monitor, you just may get this blurred image. Especially I noticed it a little bit when I was overclocking this. I overclocked it to 67 Hertz and I thought the ghosting in Battlefield 4 was a little bit worse than it was at 60 Hertz, so I turned it back down to 60 Hertz. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're overclocking your panel, just making sure that it has decent ghosting. That's why TN panels are generally considered better for 144 Hertz, because they have lower response times. Though, let's talk about quickly the monitors here. They only have one input. So if this input goes out, I've had an input on my monitor go out before on my Acer, and it had a HDMI port still working. Well, the DVI port went out, so it had a HDMI port that still works, so the monitor could still work. If the input goes out on this, you're pretty much fat out of luck because it's got no more inputs. So that's a negative of only having one input. I'm scared. I'm hoping that either of these monitors don't go out. Another thing with these monitors is they come with a big power brick as well. And something that I've managed to hide, even though you may be able to see it, but I've managed to hide them. And the seller does include an adapter for your country. So they are 100 to 240 volts, so they'll work in most parts of the world. Anyway, when it comes down to it, if you get one of these panels for $300 and it comes and it works really well, then they are just absolutely phenomenal value for money. I love these Korean panels so much. They're like my new bread and butter. I video edit on this one and I play games on this one, and it's such an enjoyable experience. The only downside at the moment is that they're 60 Hertz and that there's a little bit of ghosting. And though the 60 Hertz thing isn't such a big deal because I'm going to need more graphical power to power it to 120 Hertz if that's the case. And if I add another graphics card in there, well then things in this room will start to heat up. It'll start to become a toaster oven in here. It's already actually pretty hot in here, 31 degrees, and it's only spring.
So yeah, I've got to get an aircon in here soon.
So anyway guys, that's about it for today. If you enjoyed this sort of SAKWA Korean panel Q&A, then please give it a thumbs up. If there's anything else you want to know about the Korean panels, then feel free to drop me a comment in the comment section below, or check me out on social media, and I'll answer you guys straight away. Though for what it's worth, I absolutely love both these panels behind me. They're phenomenal. They have, like, I've had this one for over a year now, working flawlessly, hasn't missed a beat. I'm sure this one's going to have a good life as well. So two things quickly before I go, and I forgot to mention, is that they are VESA mountable, and also to take the stock stand off, the one that comes included with the monitor, is actually a big pain in the ass. It's actually probably the only thing that I don't like about these monitors. I wish they would change that, because it came on both two different models from different makers, the same bad mounting system. And so you've got to actually unscrew all the screws on the back of the panel, and then get inside of the monitor and unscrew 2 screws to get the stock mount off, so you can VESA mount these things. Anyway, also another thing is that even though it's silver, I did take off the front bracket, which is very easy to take off, and I resprayed that matte black, so it looks similar to the other one. Anyway, that's what I've done for that, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out for now, bye. So when I first got asked to review this microphone, I looked at the website and immediately I was like, whoa, I've got to get this thing. I saw that it had a 10mm diaphragm in it, and what this means is it's going to capture your voice a lot more, will give it a lot more warmth and get a lot more of a natural tone coming out of it than something with a smaller diaphragm, say these Sonys that I have here. Also,